Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Gerald here with you. Out in the garage, of course. Another live stream. And I do this thing on my YouTube channel where the last few years where I rank like my top 5 or my top 10 movies of the year so far. And I do it at the halfway point, which as we come to the end of June, 6 months gone, which by the way, what the hell is going on? It's almost July. And I feel like it was literally Christmas yesterday. But instead of doing that this year, where I did like this kind of like mass produced video with my top 10 movies of the year so far, I'm just going to live stream all the new movies I've seen. I made a presentation, kind of like PowerPoint type deal. I'm going to share that screen with you guys. And I'm going to go through every new 2023 film that I've seen so far this year. This will obviously live on YouTube in the future. So if you come to this later, these are my favorite movies of the year so far as we get to the beginning of July here. Now, a couple asterisks. I have not seen Oppenheimer. I have not seen Barbie. I have not seen Mission Impossible, the new one, Dead Reckoning, yet. There's a lot of films that have yet to come out that I'm super, super excited about and I'm hype about that were my most anticipated of the year. Obviously, if they're not out yet, I have not seen them. These are just my favorites among what I have seen. Let me and I gotta do a screen share here and get into it. The best movies of 2023 so far. I'm gonna go back and forth between my presentation and the stream. If you have comments on these movies or where I rank them, leave them in the comments, drop them below. I'll come back, I'll share comments, I'll respond. That kind of thing. But I'm going to go ahead and start because I figured if I spent like a minute or less on each entry, that's an hour. Because there are 60 films that came out this year, new films that I've seen. So let's get going. Let me go over to my presentation. Alrighty. Number 60. A movie called Kill Her Goats. My 1 star, which is generous. This is a horror movie. It's kind of a demon horror movie, but really it's just an excuse for a bunch of hot chicks to be naked the entire time, which is a horror trope that is used, which I never thought I would say this, but is overused in this film. The plot is practically non-existent, with the exception of like a couple of cool kind of like final girl moments in the last act. The movie falls super flat. I called it showering the movie because there's this one like 10-minute sequence where it cuts back and forth between 2 of the main female stars showering for like 10 minutes. So that's my number 60. I was not a fan of Kill Her Goats. I wanted to like it, but I just didn't. Speaking of horror movies, I feel bad that as a horror guy, my first 2 entries on this list, which are abysmal, are horror films. But Skinamarink hit for a lot of people. I saw people talking about how this is the coolest horror movie, the most unique, the most unsettling. So for me, it didn't work. It was just literally like home movies and you had to like listen to whispers in the background. It just didn't work for me. And I guess if you put yourself in that childlike state, it might work. It didn't work for me. I hated Skinamarink. Keep going here. Ghosted, Apple TV movie. This is a movie starring Ana de Armas and Chris Evans. It's like a spy like love comedy. Not good. We covered this on my Apple TV Plus podcast that I do with my buddy Brad. This movie was like if AI wrote the screenplay, which will probably happen someday if it hasn't already. It was just horrible dialogue, no chemistry between the 2 leads. Hated it. So stay away from Ghosted. This movie, funny story, The Machine, based on a stand-up comedy bit that Bert Kreischer does, or did, I guess. And this elaborate story about him going to Russia and getting entangled with the Russian mafia. And he told that story on stage, and it was, to humorous effect and, whatever. Well, what if the story was real? And that's kind of like what the movie is. And it actually puts him in that scenario, makes him relive the stuff he went through in his college years. Sounds really cool. And even though I am a fan of his stand-up comedy, the movie was not good. And I put out a TikTok video, my instant reaction to seeing this movie when I came out of the theater, and I basically said I didn't like it and that it was a disappointment. It currently has like 75,000 views on TikTok and probably 500 comments, maybe 400 of which are like attacking me because I didn't like it. So I have an interesting connection to this movie. Another movie that I wanted to like, but I just didn't. The Machine, my 57. Another horror movie that's way too indie and tries way too hard, in my opinion. A found footage film called The Outwaters. I also really wanted to like. I actually started a Screambox subscription so I could see this movie because I'd heard the hype and everything. It was just, I mean, some cool effects or whatever, but nah, it just didn't do it for me. The Outwaters, number 56, is just like, what did I say here? It reminds me of a headache that I had that wouldn't go away. That's fair. It was just really hard to watch. And when I say hard to watch, I mean like it was giving me a headache. Stay away from The Outwaters. I know my buddy Dan is over in the chat watching live right now. Murder Mystery 2, the first Netflix film to show up at number 55. And as you can see, how are Melanie Laurent and Jennifer Aniston both in a movie that I kind of hated? I love both of them. They're queens. I actually really like Adam Sandler. I love the first Murder Mystery. I thought it was great. I think I gave it like 3 or 3.5 stars. This was a pretty poor follow-up that tried too hard. It was kind of reliving what kind of the magic from the first one, but it didn't quite get there. And it was try hard. It was trying too hard. I just was not a fan of Murder Mystery 2, and I was disappointed because I did like the first one. There'll be some superhero films in here. This is the worst of the bunch that I've seen so far this year in the superhero genre. Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I saw with my son. It's number 54 for me. I gave it 2 stars on Letterboxd. It had some amazing supporting cast members. Helen Mirren, Rachel Zegler. But it kind of, I think this character, it's kind of outworn its welcome a little bit. It's not as charming as it was in the first Shazam, which I really, really liked. I actually think the first Shazam is one of the best DC films, period. But this is an abysmal sequel especially when you're comparing it to that first one. Just didn't like it. Fear of the Gods. Unless you're like a super fan of Shazam, stay away from it. I actually kind of like this movie, but I gave it 2 stars, which puts it a little further down in my rankings. I didn't hate this one. This one was kind of like neutral on it. It's called The Wrath of Becky. I saw it recently. Becky's awesome, but again, this was a awesome premise that worked really well in the first one that is kind of rehashed here, kind of like the Home Alone, home invasion kind of, setup with this badass young girl taking care of business against like neo-Nazis and white supremacists. And I mean, it's an awesome premise, and I really enjoyed the kind of like the setup for it. The movie itself, though, it just took forever for Becky to start doing anything, for us to really get anywhere. It spent way too much time trying to connect us to sub-characters that frankly didn't matter to the story, and we didn't really need to see it. If you're on Facebook watching this, make sure you give StreamYard permissions so I can see who is commenting. We got a couple Facebook comments over there. My number 52 I saw recently, another horror film. I feel bad ranking all these horrors so low, but it's called Brooklyn 45. It was kind of laughable, in my opinion. I felt like it was a little too dramatic. It was trying a little, like, it was like, all right, guys, this isn't like theater, okay? Let's just scale it back a little bit. I thought the acting was abysmal. Yeah, I mean, it just didn't do it for me. I know some friends of mine really liked it. It's actually gotten some pretty good reviews online, but I was not a huge fan of Brooklyn 45. It just seemed too ingenuine or disingenuous to me. Now, this is a movie called Eames Men, which is in the style of like The Lighthouse, the Robert Eggers film that I really liked from a few years ago, where this lighthouse keeper is on an island by herself, and a lady maybe in her late 40s, early 50s, and she kind of starts to lose it, for lack of a better way to put it, because she's isolated on this island. But the narrative kind of structure is completely missing from this film, and you don't really know what you're watching. It's almost like an experiment in cinema with different tropes and takes and angles. And I respected this is a movie that I respected a lot. I just didn't connect to it. I'm never going to watch it again. I would never watch this movie again. We got some people over in the chat that will appreciate this one, but look at my number 50, a movie called Snag. It's come up a lot in the last few months because a group of friends and myself were promoting this movie online. We had digital codes we were giving away. The action's okay. I mean, in my Letterboxd review, I said it's a literal definition of it's fine. It's okay. They overuse the same like hip hop scores tunes over and over again. They do a lot of these like editing tricks with different title cards and stuff. And they're cool the first few times, but after a while you're like, okay, I get it. Like, you guys are trying to be fancy here. It's an enjoyable action film, but it's not one that I'm going to like jump to recommend to anybody. A movie called Snag at my number 50. Another Netflix film, The Mother, starring J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez. I enjoyed it for what it was. It was super predictable. From like the first 5 minutes of the movie, I kind of knew how the movie was going to end, and it ended up ending that way. There were some good action set pieces in the movie, and I love her. I thought it was a little, unbelievable how she was like always beautiful. Her hair was never messed up. I mean, even in the poster, that's basically how she looks in the movie, no matter what she's, who she's fighting or what she's going through. So I think this movie dropped like around Mother's Day, and it was kind of cute with the marketing to release it around that time, but it's just kind of a so-so action movie. Netflix has done much better things this year, as you'll see as we go through this list. But if you love J-Lo, check out The Mother. All right. Fast X, guys. Here we go. We're getting into some titles that are like mainstream releases. And I will say, as we go through the rest of this list, these are all movies that I do like. Like, I like these movies. These are movies starting really with The Mother and going forward that I would watch again if they were on, or if somebody wanted to watch it with me or whatever. The best thing about Fast X, though, is Jason Momoa and his performance. I mean, he is hamming it up. He is dedicated. He's committed. He's freaking hilarious. So for that reason, it's worth a watch. I mean, the guy really turns in a great performance and brings, or kind of gets rid of, some of the staleness that I had been experiencing with this franchise to date. So I'm not a huge fan of the Fast and Furious franchise, as a lot of regular listeners and watchers will know. But I think Fast X is probably like middle of the pack in terms of ranking the franchise. It's my number 48 of the year. Number 47, The Little Mermaid remake. As I said in my Letterboxd review there, as you can see, I didn't hate the movie. I just think I just don't like these Disney remakes, the live action remakes. They just don't do it for me. I mean, really, none of them have done it for me. I mean, The Jungle Book was okay. I like Cruella, even though that might not really be considered a live action remake. It was kind of its own prequel story, if you will. But aside from those, I just like, why are we doing this? Like, I know it's money and I get it. And, millions of dollars, but Halle Bailey, I think I'm saying that right, is going to be a star, though. She was awesome as Ariel, and it was okay. It was okay. If you have young kids, if you like the original, check it out. Cocaine Bear was one of my biggest disappointments of the year. Not because I hated it, because I was so on it, but I just felt like the push for this movie, and, the marketing, the trailers, the poster, I mean, the title, everything about the movie was kind of like a bear on cocaine, and this creature feature horror movie of a bear rampaging, people in the woods. And we get that, but not enough of it. It was a lot of like unnecessary dialogue, unnecessary character development, these like kind of side stories going on, where's the bears in the woods. It's all this, we're focused on these people. I just wanted to focus on the bear. I agree with my friend Drew in the chat. It was fun, but I was having the most fun with it when it was literally Cocaine Bear. We just didn't get enough of that. I thought. I didn't hate it. It just, I don't know. I expected it to be like in my top 10 because it's like right up my alley, and it was just kind of like, okay. A movie that I will never watch again, at least not willingly, is Beau is Afraid. Another movie I didn't dislike per se, but this is, I said in my instant reaction at the theater that this was like having a nightmare while having a panic attack. Like, it was so anxiety driven. Like, you just were like anxious 90% of this movie because of the lead character Beau. And that's a testament to Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal, of course, the direction of Ari Aster, who I love. But this is Aster's worst film, which is not, which is fine because he's making masterpieces prior to this. But I mean, it's one of those movies where it's like, it's okay. But it's also one of those movies where it's like, you got to see it to believe it, kind of. Especially if you like Aster, if you like Phoenix. I'm not going to rewatch it. It's just too much. It's too much. And it stressed me out. 80 for Brady. All right, let's get a bunch of 80-year-old ladies together for a last hurrah to the Super Bowl to see their dreamboat sports figure Tom Brady playing the Super Bowl. This was just like clean, wholesome fun. Jane Fonda, Sally Field, Lily Tomlin. It was just wholesome. It was so cool. And a lot of the kind of like jokes hit. They really hit because you think of like your grandmothers and like your friends' grandmas and, what that would be like to be in that group of friends going on a trip to the Super Bowl. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed 80 for Brady. I just saw this one the other day, probably about a week ago. Kids versus Aliens. Shudder, I believe. A Shudder original, I think. I saw it on Shudder. This is a fun movie. It's short. It's like a little over an hour, which I appreciated. I dig it. It's got that kind of like Goonies vibe to it, but there's literal aliens that invade their town. And it's set during Halloween. There's a Halloween party going on. And it's not family friendly, which I'm glad I watched it without watching it with my 9-year-old first, because I thought initially like, oh, this might be cool. Goonies kind of vibes or whatever. No. A lot of bad words. A lot of actually kind of frightening stuff in the last act of the film with the aliens and stuff. So, oh yeah, and Drew just said it. Not for kids. So there we go. Psycho Goreman is last year. Is not, and also give Facebook permissions, whoever that is. But Psycho Goreman did not come out this year. Although this, you know what? I wonder if that comment is in relation to kids versus aliens, because it's kind of Psycho Goreman like in a way, a little bit. So I get what you're kind of saying there. 42 is a movie called Champions, starring Woody Harrelson as an ex-NBA assistant coach who gets fired. And as part of his community service, he ends up coaching a special needs basketball team. And it's a real feel-good story. One of the actual special needs kids in the movie is a local kid here in Raleigh. It was all over the local news where I live in North Carolina. So that was really cool to have that local connection. Woody Harrelson was here. They did interviews with him, blah, blah, blah. So Champions is like one of those like sports, like feel-good sports movies. It's just way too predictable. But you just feel so good after watching it. It's really a feel-good movie, a feel-good sports movie. I just saw this one recently on Hulu called Flamin' Hot. It's the story of the guy who basically invented the Flamin' Hot Cheetos, which are one of the most popular chips, if you will, I guess, snack chips. But I found out later that that's not really what happened. So I don't know. The marketing is kind of weird, and I haven't read enough about it to really know. But I've had some friends say, this didn't happen. This is fabricated. It's like an exaggeration of the truth, if you will. So I don't know. When I saw it, I thought it was a true biopic, and I enjoyed it for that reason. But it's not the worst movie in the world. Especially telling those kind of like Latino stories is cool too. Getting representation on screen there. My number 40 is a movie called 65 that got critically panned, that close friends of mine actually hated. I thought it was okay. Much like I said with Cocaine Bear, there wasn't enough dinosaurs in this, just like there wasn't enough bear in that movie for me. So when the trailer for this came out and the hype for 65, and actually my friend Steve and Izzy told me about this when they were doing their dinosaur movies on their podcast, and I didn't even know about it. And I said, oh my God, that sounds amazing, because, we did an instant reaction. We went to see it, me and Logan, my 9-year-old, and he said, Kylo Ren flying a spaceship into the past to fight dinosaurs. And that was kind of the way the movie was set up. And I'm not saying that's not what it is. I mean, kind of in a roundabout way, that's what it is. He's from the future, goes back 65 million years ago, and there's obviously dinosaurs on Earth. So just such a cool premise that was a bit of a letdown in the lack of dinosaurs, if you will, because there's not as large a part of the story as the trailers and materials would make you think. Movie I just saw less than a week ago or so ago at number 39 called Police Society. This is a really cool movie. Really fun. A really good story, a familial story. These two sisters, the great kind of bond that they have. The younger sister ends up kind of training to protect her older sister without giving anything away. It was just, you could tell it was low budget. The fight choreography, it was like almost like they were fighting in slow motion, but they weren't. It was just like, you could just tell they didn't spend a lot of time in the choreography around the fighting. And that brought it down a little bit for me, because this could have been like a badass action movie, but more so it was just kind of like this really cute friendship, family, sister story with some, some fight stuff here and there. I mean, it was good. I mean, I recommend it. I think it's actually streaming right now on Peacock, I think it's either Peacock or Paramount Plus, and I do recommend checking it out. It's definitely got some good parts to it. A movie called Clock comes in at number 38, another quote-unquote horror movie. It's really more of a thriller about this lady whose biological clock is ticking, and she goes to this kind of like a retreat, if you will, to kind of find out why she can't have kids or can't get pregnant. And some supernatural, I don't want to give anything away, but some stuff happens while she's at the retreat, while she's there. And yeah, it takes a turn. So this was a movie that I was completely off board the first hour, and then all of a sudden I was into it. It's really weird. Like, it kind of grabbed me an hour in when some shit started happening, and I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. Okay. So it kind of kicks it up a notch, kind of out of nowhere. And it really saved it for me in the last 30 to 40 minutes of the movie. But Clock is streaming on Hulu if you're into it. A movie I just saw. I just watched this yesterday, actually. A movie called You Hurt My Feelings, starring Julia Louis-Dreyfus. In my review there on Letterboxd, I said that basically this is White People Problems, the movie. That's essentially what it is. But, it's basically telling the story of these two people kind of fighting for their marriage and trying to navigate that, and how we take people that, we're married to or we love for granted. Julia Louis-Dreyfus literally carries this. I mean, she is flawless in this movie. I actually put her in my predictions for Oscar actress when I did that a few months ago. Not seeing the movie, just kind of going on her name and her career. And I still think that she actually could have a shot at that. I think it's probably going to be too crowded of a field, but she definitely is Oscar worthy, if you will, in the movie. And, it's kind of a stupid premise. She overhears her husband in a bookstore basically saying that he doesn't think she is as good of a writer as she used to be. And that causes kind of the plot of the movie, is her being upset at him. So like I said, White People Problems, the movie. But it's not bad, especially if you like her. I say give it a shot. From You Hurt My Feelings to No Hard Feelings, starring Jennifer Lawrence. Does full frontal nudity in this movie. which has now been reported across multiple outlets, so it's not a shock. But it's good. It's a raunchy comedy. And one thing I'll say is that J-Law proved that she can carry a film, because this movie is the epitome of boring, predictable, kind of like sex comedy. You know, nothing unique, nothing different, but her dedication to the role and the physical comedy, but also the dramatic parts of it too, that she goes through with her past with her father. And she just literally, with this kind of movie, you wouldn't think to say this, but she literally gave her all to this movie, and she carried it for me. It was hilarious at times. I mean, I laughed out loud on multiple occasions in this movie, and I would recommend this film. No hard feelings to my 36. Number 35, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, Super Mario Brothers. If you have kids, check it out. This is a movie that's like nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. And I am a huge Mario video game guy. So Mario Kart is my favorite game of all time, of any console, anything ever, video game related. So I love seeing all that stuff. But I feel like I don't know. I mean, did we need it? I mean, it's going to make millions of dollars, so sure. But it just felt like if you took the best kind of parts of the video games and enhanced the animation and threw it into a slideshow, that's what you got with this movie. The plot was basically non-existent. It was essentially the plot of the first game, trying to save Peach, and, Bowser's trying to get her. Jack Black was great in the role as Bowser. So it had good parts, but the kids are going to love it. That's for sure. My kids do. Speaking of kids loving it, another animated film at my number 34, Elemental, the new Disney Pixar. This is a story that's been regurgitated literally a million times, and not just a million times, but several times by Pixar, or by Disney, I should say. It's like, we can all get along, guys. We can all exist in society, regardless of our background or race or whatever. That's what this is. This is basically Zootopia, but instead of the animal kind of like races, it's elements. You have the fire elements, the water, the two main ones, obviously. Then you have like wind and energy. I mean, it's like, that's what the story is all these different races trying to exist in this world. Why can't we all get along, kind of thing. Now, the animation is stellar. The characters and the voice acting was great. This is one that I recommend. I don't know. I just felt like we've heard this a million times. Nicolas Cage's Dracula is all you need to know for Renfield, my number 33. Man, what a casting choice that was, I tell you. Absolutely killed it. Nicholas Hoult, too, as Renfield. This is another movie. I actually went up with my friends, the Epic Film Guys, and did a review of this film when it came out. And what I kind of said over there is the same thing I feel now. I haven't rewatched it, but if we would have had an hour and a half or whatever the runtime is of their relationship, Dracula and Renfield, and that was what we got the bulk of the movie, A+. But the problem is we get that, and then it steers off. And there's actually one point in the movie where the characters aren't even really interacting with each other for like the whole middle part of the movie. And that was a miss, in my opinion, because when the two of them were on screen together, it was flawless. I mean, it was like watching a literal clinic. And Nicolas Cage's Dracula, I mean, I don't know that there has been better casting this year. I'll just tell you. I mean, I have to think about it, but I mean, that's up there. Number 32 is a movie called Sisu, which I would dub as, which I don't think I'm the only one to say this. I feel like I heard this on Twitter or something, but this is like a World War II style John Wick movie. The Finnish John Wick, I think somebody said in one of their reviews. That's basically what this is. It's a dude that shouldn't be able to accomplish and kill as much as he does, but he does because of his training or history or whatever. And that's what this movie is. It's super, like, you have to literally, like, even more so than John Wick, suspend disbelief. There's no way, especially in that era without technology or whatever, there's no way this guy's surviving the first 2 or 3 scenes of this movie. He's dead. But spoiler alert, he kicks ass, he gets revenge, he does the whole thing, gets the Nazis. Like, it's great. It's great. It's a good time. I had a blast with this movie, but it's just super unbelievable. And you kind of laugh a couple scenes, like I don't know, man. But yeah, Sisu, which also I think is streaming now, by the way, or maybe video on demand if you want to check it out. It's a good action movie. Here's a horror movie that I really dug called Sick on Peacock. I'd like to know if my horror friends saw this. I dug this. Now, the reveal, and I'm not going to give it away here, but the reveal or whatever, the killer at the end and the antagonist, if you will. But to me, the antagonist is COVID in this movie. And this movie did a really, really good job in both a funny way, but also kind of a like reflective way of reminding us of where we were at the early stages of COVID in 2020, which for anybody really was a fucking nightmare. And there's one scene in this movie that's in the trailers too, so it's not a spoiler, but there's one scene in this movie where one of our main girls is running from the killer, and she crosses a lady in her car that's driving down the street in her car. And she's like banging on the window, and she's like bloody, and the guy's chasing her. She's trying to escape, and the lady won't let her in the car because of COVID. And she's like, "You don't have a mask. Have you been vaccinated?" And wouldn't let her in the car, and she was literally about to be killed. And I feel like there were people like that in 2020. Like, it was a scary time to be really in the world, but definitely in America. And I thought this movie did a really good job of kind of reminding us of that, but also this kind of fun slasher, if you will. So Sick. Let's see. Let me throw up a couple comments here, if I can. Let's see. Our buddy Brett said Sick was a good time. Drew says the ending felt forced, but overall it was a good time. I didn't. That's why I said the reveal and like whatever was kind of like, I don't know, but I know I just love the incorporate, and the opening in Sick was really good too. The opening, kill, if you will, from the grocery store with everybody in the mask, and they were in line, and they had to have 6 feet distance. I just really like how they incorporated kind of like the COVID era into this movie. Another kind of horror movie in the horror realm, I guess you could say. It's more of a thriller called Unseen. I had a lot of fun with this movie. I don't know. Let me know if you guys have seen it. I don't know that I would say this is a good movie. Like, you don't watch it and go, "Oh my God, that's a well-made film." Like, let's sip tea or whatever. But I had so much fun with this movie. The 2 lead actresses are great, and they kind of build this friendship over the phone and FaceTime and stuff like that, because they're miles and miles apart. But I didn't like the villain. Like, I was never really scared of him in this movie. And I love the ending of this film. Missy Pyle has a like comedic kind of like bitch part in the movie, and she keeps recurring that I just was on the floor. She was so over the top and just went all in. I had to pause it after one scene in the convenience store with her because she just played that so well. And it was the great comedic relief that we needed. And I love the lead roles. I love the ending in the barn. I won't give anything away, but yeah, it's a great film. Basically about a girl who can't see and is on the run from someone who's stalking her in the wilderness, in the middle of nowhere, basically. And the only thing she has to guide her is a stranger who she's on the phone with. So that's your setup. So if that sounds cool to you, check out Unseen. I want to say I saw that on MGM, I think. I had like a free trial, so I think that's an MGM original movie, but I don't know if it's streaming anywhere else. Unseen, my number 30. Number 29, Netflix. Netflix is back in the hunt here. You People. I enjoyed this. It got shit on. It really did. I mean, Jonah Hill, I love. Eddie Murphy, I love. I kind of liked the witty, kind of like Twitter talk in this movie, if you will. TikTok talk that they use, trying to be hip or whatever. I don't know. I was fine with it. I thought some of the transitions were weird. Kind of looked like a music video at times. But it's a cool story about an interracial relationship and about coming from different backgrounds and how we have to bring our families into that. So now, and speaking of Julia Louis-Dreyfus, she makes another appearance here, where she's the Jewish side for Jonah Hill's family. And then you have Eddie Murphy, the black family on the other side. So you have a Jewish guy and a black girl coming together and kind of dealing with all that and kind of meshing and butting heads. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. I thought it was touching. I believed the chemistry between the two leads. So I was into it. You People is on Netflix. Check it out if you're into it. Another Apple TV movie called Tetris, which is not based on the game, which when I saw, I'm like, how the hell are they going to make a movie about Tetris? Like, what? Luckily, it's not. It's about the creation of the game and kind of the popularization of the game, Tetris, which is one of the biggest games ever in video game history, but definitely to come out of the 80s. Taron Egerton kills it in this role. A great role for him in this movie. He turns it. He is doing his thing. He's always turning in good performances, in my opinion. But you can check out Tetris on Apple TV. It's a really interesting story, what it took to get that game to America, basically. Russia, once again, back in the mix here. I don't know if I'll get hate mail for this one, but sorry, guys. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, I liked it, okay? When this movie came out a couple months ago, Twitter especially, oh my God, I can't sleep. I've been crying for days, like, this, that. And I mean, it's like, I'm the wrong guy to ask because I'm so over the superhero genre in general. I just am. But I will say the Guardians turn in pretty solid entries. Like, I like all these kind of like band of misfit characters. And it works. Seeing all them on screen together, it works. James Gunn, the trilogy kind of coming to a head here. So I liked it, even though it's at 27. I gave it 3.5 stars, which would essentially be a 7 out of 10. So, I mean, it's a good film, especially in the realm of superhero movies. We could do a lot worse. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 would be my 27 of the year so far. Here's a horror movie that I freaking loved. Absolutely loved it. It's on Shudder, called Influencer. And I'm not going to spoil anything. I can't really even talk about a lot about this movie without spoiling it. But it's just, generally speaking, I'll just tell you, it's about the social media age and being a social media influencer, making money on Instagram and TikTok. And if that's your life, and OnlyFans and all that crap, that's kind of like what would be the horrific side of that. Think about it. And you probably know what the movie entails. But it's done really well. It's done really well, which is why I don't want to talk a lot about it. Because as you're watching it, as I was watching it, I was surprised at each kind of turn in the movie. But I really enjoyed this film. Even though it's 26, this is one of the better in the horror realm this year, in my opinion. How about Plane with Gerard Butler? He did, what was the movie he did, guys, with the natural disaster or whatever a few years ago, where the asteroid, I think it was asteroid, hits Earth or whatever, and he has to take his family to the bunker. Greenland. I think it was Greenland. So I think Butler does these like super basic formulaic films that are action. That's what we're here for. We're here for planes being hijacked, and in the other movie, asteroids hitting the Earth. That's what we're here for. We're not here for all this, like, let's get to know the characters and, why did your parents hate you? And like, we don't need to know any of that shit. Gerard Butler sees a script and he goes, okay, I can take my shirt off in one scene and I can fight some dudes and it's going to be a great time at the movies. It's a good popcorn action flick. And that's another one. And this came out in January. And when I saw this, I was like, man, let's go. Like 2023 might be in for something here. So if you like basic, easy, turn your brain off action, check out Plane. I dug it. I really did. The Flash, another superhero movie that I gave 3.5. The CGI in this is freaking horrible, guys. Literally, perhaps the worst CGI, human CGI that I've ever seen. I mean, just laughably bad. But seeing Michael Keaton back in the bat suit, the Barry Allen's kind of like emotional journey in this film. I really liked Kara, Supergirl, in the movie as well. It, from a DC perspective, it was one of the better ones for me personally. It's a box office bomb. It's a failure, box office wise. The marketing is just a nightmare for this movie. I don't know what Warner Brothers was doing. Obviously, the Ezra Miller stuff is a whole thing in and of itself, and is not going to be received well from a lot of people. But just judging the movie, I think it's a fine superhero film. And I do wish that it had done better, if for no other reason for the Keaton perspective. But it's my number 24 of the year. 23, a movie I just saw a few days ago called Mad Heidi. Another badass action film, but not only a badass action film, just so stupid. Like, this is literally a left field, like, what the fuck am I watching? Just crazy movie. There's some just over the top, ludicrous shit that happens in this film that I ate up. I loved it so much. It's one of my favorite kind of like B movies, if you will, that I've seen this year. And I know recency bias might be a thing because I just saw it. But our lead actress in a freaking, St. Pauli girl costume or whatever, killing dudes. Let's go. It was a good time. There were some lulls in it. It would have been ranked a little higher for me. There were some lulls where I was like, let's go. Let's get back to the crazy, weird shit. But Mad Heidi is on demand right now. I think it's like $2 or $3. So check it out. Creed 3 would be my number 22. This is a movie I saw early before it came out, and I think it's one of the better films in the Rocky franchise. If we're extending the whole universe, probably top 5, I would say. It's not as good as the first Creed, but it's better than Creed 2, and it's better than some of the Rocky entries as well. It's a shame what's going on with Jonathan Majors right now. I know there's been some updates to that, but I'm going to stay out of it because I don't know. I haven't read a lot about it. I've been working. I don't know. But nevertheless, it's a shame because he turns in an amazing performance here. Michael B. Jordan always delivers. This was his directorial effort, and you kind of see his passion that he brought to the projects as well. So Creed 2 is up there for me. It's a good one. There's some interesting angles taken from a direction standpoint by Jordan that I really respected. This movie, oh man. This is one of my favorites of the year, but man, what a brutal watch. I mean, just sitting there thinking about it, I'm like, man, that was fucked up. It's a drama movie. It's a slow burn drama. And again, I don't want to give anything away because when you find out in the last act what's going on, it affected me. So I don't want to change that for you if you watch it. But Palm Trees and Power Lines is a May-December romance story at its core. That's what it's about. An older guy and essentially a high school girl. I think she might be 17 in the movie. It's their relationship and falling for each other. That's the main through line. But there's a huge plot twist and turn that the movie takes that I don't want to talk about because, again, like I said, it's a very affecting the way it plays out. But yeah, it's a movie that sits with you. There's some movies that you can't shake, and this is one of them for me. But such a well-made film. Performances across the board are stellar. Palm Trees and Power Lines. My number 20 is a movie called Significant Other, streaming on Paramount Plus. The Micah Monroe being followed universe is alive and well. This is her essentially being followed in the woods when she's on a camping trip with her boyfriend by some aliens. It's basically what it is. She's trying to survive the wilderness and not get taken over by the aliens. So if that works for you, if you like Micah Monroe, you got to check out Significant Other. It is streaming on Paramount Plus. I loved it. It was one of the most pleasant surprises of the year for me. And then we get into my top 20. My number 19. I really dug this, obviously. M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin. I liked it because, for a lot of reasons, but probably the main reason is because it does not feel like a Shyamalan movie in the sense that we have a plot twist every 10 minutes, especially as you get to the end. It's just, this is the story. These are these people. All right. This is why they're doing what they're doing. This is what they say is going to happen. Shit either happens or doesn't happen based on what they said or coincidence or whatever you think. The end. Now, I know the book that it's based on, I found out later, had a much darker ending that would have been a lot more bleak that Shyamalan did not do. And he basically said he didn't do it because he has kids. And he's like, I can't imagine that happening to my kids. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to film it that way. So he took liberties there with the story a little bit. But I didn't know that when I saw it. And like I said, it's a very straightforward movie that doesn't come with a inordinate amount of plot twists. And that was surprising to me as someone who thinks Shyamalan's been chasing that. What can I do to shock the audience this time? You know what I mean? He's been chasing that literally since The Sixth Sense. Some have worked, some haven't, most haven't. But he doesn't do that here. It's just, this is my movie. Here it is. So I dug it. My number 19. My number 18. Bam. Not quite the best action movie of the year, but definitely one of them was Extraction 2. And if there was an award for like the most improved from original to sequel in the history of the world, this might be in the running. Literally 1,000 times better than the first Extraction, which I actually didn't hate. But nothing comparatively to this film because of the heart that it kind of introduces. And some of the characters, like side characters and their relationships, and it works when we spend time with them. And even Hemsworth's character, and kind of in retirement, if you will, from the first movie, and kind of like his being brought back in. The first Extraction was okay, but this one to me is like times 100. I mean, in my opinion, from the first one. First one, I think I may have given 3 stars, so I didn't hate it. But this one I loved. I almost dropped a 4.5 on it. But it ended up falling into 4, which puts it at 18 for my year, or for the year. And if you love action movies, check out Extraction 2. It's on Netflix. Megan, my girl. Yes. What's up, boo? Number 17. Another movie I saw all the way back, I believe in January. It may have been February, but it was early in the year. Kind of a teeny bopper horror movie, if you will, that incorporates, again, social media, technology, where we're going with AI, which, by the way, when this came out, of course, AI was a thing, but I mean, we didn't have Chat GPT yet, or it was in the infancy stages, at least. It wasn't like, on every message board in the world like it is now. So it's kind of eerie in that way. And I know they're doing a sequel, Megan 2.0. So I love this because in 10, 15 years, she could be here. Would she turn into this murderous killer? I mean, I hope not, but we could have AI dolls at our disposal in 10 years. I'm just telling you, with AI and with technology, and Blumhouse has got a hit here. Some Blumhouse misses and some knock it out of the park. I thought this was a home run. I absolutely loved Megan. I love Allison Williams. I thought it was great. Let's see. Yaney. Let me go down to the comments. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going back and forth between my presentation and the chat. Yaney, I disagree with your thoughts on how bad the CGI is. I've seen people fall off a ship recently. I don't know what the hell Yaney's talking about. Maybe he's talking about The Flash. Not sure. But if you are talking about The Flash, I don't know if you've seen it, but when I did my review with Nick last week, I said that it reminded me of when they did Woody in Toy Story in the first one. I mean, that's what the humans looked like in Flash. I'm just telling you. Let's see. So let me go back up here. Sorry. Where am I? Oh my God. Okay. So Megan is my 17. Number 16 is it was HBO Max, but now I guess it's just Max. But it's a movie called Reality, based on a military, I think she was in the Navy, military personnel. Her name is actually Reality Winner. which is like perhaps the most unbelievable thing about the story. That's what her parents named her. Reality winner. Look it up. But she was ex-military and she was working in the Pentagon, and she is the person who leaked information during the 2016 election that perhaps helped Trump get elected, or the fake social media stuff that was going around. She leaked that to, I think, New York Times, or it was one of those popular magazines or periodicals, if you will. I don't know the whole story, just kind of what they show in the movie, which the movie is kind of fascinating because the movie's an hour and a half or whatever, and it's just a real-time reenactment of the FBI interrogation of her. So the FBI comes to her home when she gets back from like working out, or I don't know, I think she was at the gym or something, and they're like waiting for her at her house. And the movie is from that moment till they arrest her, basically. And that's how the movie plays out, real time. There's no cuts, there's no like flashback. I mean, that's the movie. So it was kind of interesting experimentally in that way too. But Sydney Sweeney, man, what a good performance in this. I know her from Euphoria mostly. Obviously, Madame Web in the near future, which I'm super excited about. But she really, really does a good job as reality in this movie. My number 15 is Brandon Cronenberg's Infinity Pool, a fucked up movie, a mind fuck that will just leave you like, what the fuck is happening? Which the Cronenbergs tend to do that. Mia Goth going fucking crazy, and that's when I love her at her most in Infinity Pool. But she has a memorable performance as well. Alexander Skarsgård, great film. Wonderful imagery, horrific imagery, kind of a fucked up, hard to follow story, if you will. But at its core, it's like you can't look away. Number 14 is a documentary called Still, about Michael J. Fox's struggle with Parkinson's. It's on Apple TV Plus. High recommend for me. As you can see, it's my 14th of the year. Best documentary of the year so far as well that I've seen. It does this really cool thing where it interviews Fox and people that are close to him. And then it does these like really stylized reenactments of his career. So instead of showing a scene from Back to the Future, it does like this kind of like, you remember when they used to do reenactments during Dateline, NBC, or Unsolved Mysteries, where it was like actors reenacting whatever? That's what they kind of do. So they do frame by frame, shot by shot of what we know from like Back to the Future and Teen Wolf and Family Ties, but it's like stand-ins acting for the scenes that he's talking about while they're interviewing him. So it's a really interesting documentary, and I love Michael J. Fox. And, he's so courageous. He's still, I mean, the guy is just a inspiration. He really is. And it was a wonderful look, an emotional look at his career. Still. My number 13, I think Drew was mentioning this earlier in their chat, is called Missing, which is essentially a sequel to Searching, although they're not really connected. It's just that kind of social media found footage type film. And this one was better than Searching. I love this movie. Loved it so much that I watched it, and then a couple nights later we had movie night around the house. We do movie night on the weekends. Watched it again with my wife and my son. So I saw it twice in the same week. I really liked it. I stand by it as being better than Searching, which I also really liked. The ending to this is fucking great. Pretty sweet plot twist at the end that I didn't see coming. And I won't give it away, but yeah, great movie. If you like Searching, I'm 99% sure that you'll like Missing, and I highly recommend you check it out. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, is my number 12, based on a book from, I think, the 70s, I think. But Benny Safdie and Rachel McAdams play Margaret's parents in New York City at the time, and I said, I got news for you, Margaret. God is there. If those are your parents. Just phenomenal presence on screen, both of them. And the young actress that played Margaret was great. It was tender. It was a cute coming of age story. and I really enjoyed it. I love the aesthetic of the 1970s, and Rachel McAdams, in my opinion, can carry anything. Not that not that the other actors didn't turn in great stuff here too, but it's a really feel good coming of age story. Here we go. Now we're talking some horror here. Evil Dead Rise is my number 11. One of my favorite horror movies of the year. I love the brutality of the Evil Dead franchise. I love the comedy too. Don't come at me, Deadites. I love the original of Sam Raimi stuff, Bruce Campbell, Ash. I mean, it's all fucking great. It's all iconic. But the 2013 Evil Dead remake was my shit. I mean, so much blood, so much violence, so much killing, brutality in that movie. That was what I was like, we can do this. And they did it again here with Evil Dead Rise. It didn't hit as well for me as the 2013 Fede Alvarez film did, but I absolutely love this one too. I wish we would do something a little different with the Necronomicon. Somebody finds it, somebody opens it, reads it because they're stupid, and here we go. I love the mother aspect, kind of, imagine if it was your mom coming after you as a Deadite. So I like that being incorporated, but there was some stuff that I wasn't like super high on, but the opening and the title card of this movie, fuck me, dude. Like chills just thinking about it right now. I mean, one of the best title sequences I've ever seen, honestly. Evil Dead Rise, my number 11. I might get dragged a little bit for my next two, but look, they're in my top 10, guys. What the hell do you guys want, okay? Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is my number 10 of the year so far. I think it's my highest animated. I can't see all the way down my list here, but I don't think I have anything higher than this on the animated scale. It's good, okay? This is a good film. It's in my top 10 of the year as we sit here at the end of June. It's not as good as Into the Spider-Verse. It's not as good as going outside of animation. It's not as good as some of the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans, particularly Spider-Man 2. But it's probably top 5 in the Spider-Man canon, in my opinion. The animation is essentially that Lord Miller style that we got in the first one, but better because it's had time on its side to kind of, increase the technology or whatever. And I think for me, it ran so long and then stuff starting to happen. And then it's like, oh, we'll see at part 3, which, I mean, I get it. I know it's a trilogy. I knew it was a trilogy coming into it, but it's like, I need to rewatch it because I look back on it going, why did we spend that long to get to a to be continued? And I know that argument will fall flat with people that freaking were jumping off the roofs of their houses when they saw this movie. That's another thing that bothered me a little bit with like this and the Flash, what I was mentioned earlier, is that people were seeing them early. They were like, oh my God, you're not going to believe this. This is the greatest superhero movie I've ever seen. And I'm like, what? And then I saw it and I'm like, you think that's the best superhero movie ever? I don't know. And if you do, that's great. I just didn't see that. I didn't expect, based on what I'd heard, I didn't expect to see what I saw. My number 10, though, guys. My number 10. Here's another one. Everybody calm down, okay? I love John Wick. I love Chapter 4 as well. It's my number 9 of the year. 4 stars on Letterboxd. This, I'm going to say this, then I'm going to move on because people are going to come at me. How is he doing really any of this? Okay. What the hell is going on? Like, how is this guy doing this? All right. Up and down the stairs, 100 dudes with guns, by the way. Jumping literally off of cliffs that would kill any human. At some point, you just kind of go, John Wick, you can't do this anymore. You've got to pack it up. So, I mean, I get it. Like, you don't go to John Wick to, like, believe, like, the human box that we're in or whatever. Like, I understand that. But to me, this was like a live action Roadrunner Coyote movie. I mean, that's, I don't, coyotes falling off cliffs with boulders falling on them. And, it's a cartoon. That's fine. It's Looney Tunes. If it's happening to John Wick, he should be dead. I mean, that's all I'm saying. So you just kind of think about that in your head. But I mean, from the action perspective, the set pieces, unstoppable. I mean, some of the best you'll see ever. A movie called Air, directed by Ben Affleck, is my number 8. I did a review of this on the channel, if you guys want to go back and look that up under my movie reviews playlist. But I dug it. I really, really like this. Jason Bateman, Matt Damon, Chris Tucker steals the show here. Kind of comic relief, but it's a touching story about how Nike courted Michael Jordan in the 80s, and it ended up changing literally marketing for all athletes going forward. So it's kind of an important story too in our pop culture era that we live in. But Air is streaming on Amazon Prime right now, by the way, my number 8. My number 7 is a Hulu original called Rye Lane. Basically a romantic comedy about 2 down on their luck people in London that kind of find each other inadvertently in an art museum. And one's going through a breakup and one's going through a career change. And they're kind of at, not rock bottom, but they're just in a weird place, and they find each other. And they start spending time together and helping each other out and their different dilemmas. And it's a very inventive way that it's told visually. And it's a really touching love story. Rye Lane is on Hulu if you want to check it out. My number 6 is a movie that I freaking loved. And I didn't even think I was going to like it. And I loved it. I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons. I was like, why am I going to see this? I absolutely love this movie. Another one that I would put in the action realm, and one of the best action films of the year, one of the best adventure films. Chris Pine is just the most charming asshole ever in the history of film. Like, he's so good in this. A lot of great sub characters. Michelle Rodriguez kicks ass. An amazing cameo that I put in my Letterboxd review there with the chef's kiss. But I'm not going to give it away because I freaking loved it. So hopefully, if you've seen it, you know what cameo I'm talking about. But it's Michelle Rodriguez's ex-husband, I think, or boyfriend, that they go back and meet. And it sent me. I loved it. I felt like I was floating on a cloud. My number 6. My number 5, Scream 6. I think this is my highest rated horror movie of the year. Still sitting in my top 5. I'm biased. I got the ghost face crap all around me. I love the Scream franchise. And I thought this was I ranked them. So I don't want to misquote myself. I feel like I ranked this 3rd in the franchise, I think. The best one in a while. 2nd, maybe. I may have ranked the 2nd, actually. The original is always going to be number 1. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you put out. The original will always be my number 1. I'm confident in saying that. I should have a more open mind, but that's just the way it is. And I love Scream 6. The reveal was a little Scooby-Doo, but everything leading up to it was literally perfect for me. So I knocked off a half star for the reveal because I thought it was a little, Scooby-Doo, where are you? But I mean, what is Scream really? We're trying to figure out who Ghostface is, So that's kind of what it is as its core anyway. But it's my number 5 of the year. My number 4 is a movie where Margaret Qualley plays a dominatrix, dominating multi-millionaire Christopher Abbott. You need anything else? Are you good? This movie was awesome. Literally floored me. It was one of those movies where, like, my mouth was like, I just couldn't believe. I couldn't believe the back and forth. It was like a chess match, but it was like sexy. It was like hot. You know what I mean? And it was just these two actors. I mean, it was a single location film in a hotel room for the most part. There was like, I think a couple times where they went on the elevator, but I mean, generally it was like them in his hotel room. That was the whole movie for like an hour and 40 minutes or whatever. And it was just this great back and forth, trying to one up each other, but doing it in a very seductive way. And you never know who you're supposed to trust or who the good guy is in the scenario. For me, it's Margaret Qualley. You know what I'm saying? But it just kind of creates that dilemma for the viewer. And it was so good, man. Easily one of my favorites of the year. I'm wondering if this one's going to stick around for my end of the year list, but I love Sanctuary. Another movie I loved is a biopic called BlackBerry, about the creation of essentially the first smartphone, the BlackBerry phone. Some people don't even that are around today probably don't know what that is, but I remember it, and it led to what we have today with iPhones and everything else, Pixels and all that crap. Without the BlackBerry, none of that would exist. And that's what's fascinating to me about the story is that the founders here in the story is like if they had just thought, and this is I'm not even telling you, I'm not exaggerating. If they had the idea that Steve Jobs had to make it a touch screen and take away the keypad, they would have invented the iPhone, what was essentially the iPhone. But because they didn't think of that first, they lost the race. You know, they were winning the battle, but they lost the war. And as simple as just getting rid of that keyboard. And, you know, my wife said she had a BlackBerry and didn't want to get rid of it initially because she liked the keyboard. And I'm sure some people did because you're used to, you know, typing on your computer and the whole thing. But it's just a fascinating story. It really is. It really is. BlackBerry and Glenn Howerton of Always Sunny in Philadelphia fame. I think if the buzz lingers around this for a while, he could be in the supporting actor race because he is so good in this. That's kind of like this slimy businessman who, I mean, helps BlackBerry succeed, but at the same time, he's just not, from a moral perspective, he's an immoral character, savvy business guy, but greedy and just does such a good job in that role. My number two, my runner-up is a movie called How to Blow Up a Pipeline. This was my number one until about a week ago, actually. And you'll find out what took over if you don't already know. But this is a taut thriller. It plays like a heist movie. It's these like college kind of political activists that are taking it upon themselves to literally blow up a pipeline that they, you know, feel is ruining the environment. So they're going to destroy it because the vote, you know, the Congress passed it and their legislation failed them. So it plays as like a political thriller with like heist element vibes. It's really hard to explain, and that's why I love it. It's such a unique kind of genre that I don't think really has existed prior. You know, think of like Ocean's 11 with Clooney and Pitt was politically motivated. You know what I mean? Like they wanted to blow up the casino because of whatever, politically. So that's kind of what this movie is, and the way it's shot with the back and forth through our different characters. There's like 8 or 9 different characters that are in this group that are collaborating to blow up the pipeline. But yeah, it's really good. It's really good. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's one of those edge of your seat watches for sure. I watched it on demand. It had a short theatrical run, but I didn't get to see it in theaters. I watched it on demand. How to Blow Up a Pipeline is a high recommend for me. And then my number one of the year so far is Past Lives, a film from A24 that I just saw. And I think this film's perfect. I literally can't think of anything bad to say about this movie. There were no lulls in it. There were no bad performances in it. Celine Song is a first-time director here, female director who absolutely slayed this. I mean, you would think she was freaking Spielberg status. I mean, making 100 movies after seeing this. I mean, it was so well done, so well crafted. Greta Lee, who's on the poster there, our lead actress, will be nominated for Best Actress. I'm telling you, I'm calling that right now, possibly could win it, depending on how much hype's around the movie when we get to award season. But so good. So good. Like, I don't want to give anything away, but essentially it's a love triangle, kind of like romantic comedy drama thing. But it's really beautiful, really well told, and high recommend from me. It's still playing in theaters. I think some cities are still getting it. But it's my number one of the year, Past Lives. There you go. Those of you that stuck with me and watched it, thank you so much. I love you guys. A lot of you are my patrons. I saw Yanni. I saw Drew. I saw my boy Dan over there. I think he left after I ranked Fast X back in the 40s, but he was around earlier. And if you're catching this later on YouTube, that's how I rank the movies of 2023 so far. Please subscribe to my channel. Let me know down in the comments. If you weren't on the live stream, let me know down in the comments what you thought of the ranking, what your favorite movie of the year so far is. And all of you that tuned in for the live stream, kisses. I love you so much. I'll do something else. You guys know I'll be around. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys later.